Picture this. It's 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, and a truck carrying $500,000 worth of electronics breaks down in the middle of nowhere. The shipment needs to be in Miami by 8 a.m. for a product launch. The driver's panicking, and in a traditional logistics operation, the disaster doesn't get handled until someone checks their voicemail the next morning. In an AI-powered logistics operation, this problem is solved in 12 minutes. The AI has already found a replacement truck 35 miles away, negotiated an emergency rate, coordinated the transfer, and updated the customer, all while the human's ops team is still asleep. Hi, I'm Adhiraj, and I build AI systems for logistics companies, and what I'm about to show you is going to fundamentally change how you think about supply chain operations. By 2028, the logistics companies still using human coordinators for routine operations will be extinct. Not struggling, but extinct, because they literally cannot compete with the economics and speed of voice AI. If you're serious about staying competitive in logistics and want to see exactly how AI is transforming supply chain ops with real implementation details, hit subscribe. I break down these industry shifts every week with the technical specs and actual ROI numbers you need. Let's talk about why. Let me tell you about a logistics company I consulted for last year. They're a mid-sized broker, about $40 million in annual revenue, 12 full-time coordinators managing freight operations. They came to me because their margins were getting crushed. They'd calculate a load should cost $2,200 to move, quote the customer at $2,600 for a healthy margin, then by the time they actually booked the carrier and dealt with the coordination, the real cost was $2,500. Their projected 18% margin turned into a 4% margin. This was happening on hundreds of loads per month. I asked them to track one specific metric for me. How many phone calls does it take to book a single load from quote to confirmed carrier? The answer shocked them. It was an average of 23 phone calls per load. Now let's think about what that actually means. To move one truckload from point A to point B, your coordinator is making 23 separate phone calls, calling carriers to check capacity, leaving voicemails, playing phone tag, and negotiating rates. Each call takes 4 to 7 minutes when you factor in wait times, so that's 92 to 161 minutes of labor just to book one load, and they're booking 50 to 70 per day. The math is devastating. You're spending roughly 2.5 hours of coordinator time per load, and you're paying that coordinator $30 per hour fully loaded. That's $75 in pure labor cost per load before you actually get to the freight cost. Now here's what breaks the entire model. Voice AI makes those same 23 calls simultaneously in 8 minutes total. The labor cost per load drops to essentially zero. Your competitor using a voice AI has a $75 per load cost advantage on coordination alone. They can undercut your pricing by $50 per load, maintain better margins than you, and still come out ahead. This isn't a marginal difference, but this is a complete restructuring of logistics economics that just makes traditional coordination financially non-viable. Now, every logistics operation, regardless of size, runs on three fundamental conversations that happen thousands of times a day: the capacity conversation, the status conversation, and the problem conversation. Let me break down each one and show you why AI handles them objectively better than humans. The capacity conversation is where you're trying to find a truck for a load. In traditional ops, your coordinator starts calling carriers one by one. Call number one might be, hey, do you have a capacity for a load from Dallas to Chicago on Thursday? Carrier says, let me check, we might, what's it paying? You give them the rate, they say they'll call you back, but they don't. Call number two, different carrier but the same dance. Now they quote you $200 higher than your target, and you try to negotiate, but they're firm, so you put them on the maybe list. Calls 3 through 8 are various combinations of voicemail, no capacity, price is too high, or I'll get back to you. Call number 9, you finally find someone who has a capacity at a workable rate. You verbally agree, you email the confirmation, and now you wait for them to send the confirmation back. Sometimes they ghost you and book a better load somewhere else. This process takes 45 to 90 minutes for a single load. Now watch what voice AI does. It simultaneously calls 40 carriers in your network at the exact same time. Within 6 minutes, you have 28 responses with confirmed capacity and rates. The AI has already filtered by your target margin, ranked by carrier reliability scores, and identified the optimal choice. The coordinator doesn't make a single call. They just review the AI's recommendation and approve. The status conversation is the where's my truck conversation that happens hundreds of times a day in a busy logistics operation. The customer calls and asks, where's my shipment? It was supposed to deliver this morning. Now your coordinator might say, let me get back on that. Now your coordinator might say, let me check on that and get back to you. So they call the driver and it hits voicemail. They call the carrier dispatcher, they're on another call. So they try the driver again. He answers this time, but he's driving and can barely hear. He thinks he's about 2 hours out, but not sure because there was traffic. So now your coordinator calls a customer back 30 minutes later with a vague answer. The customer is annoyed because they needed to know this an hour ago to plan their warehouse staff. Voice AI eliminates this entire charade. It's tracking the truck via ELD data in real time, so when the customer asks for status, they get an instant answer with current location, updated ETA, and confidence level based on current traffic conditions. But here's where it gets really powerful. The AI is proactively calling customers with updates before they even ask. It might say something like, hey, this is your company's AI. Your load is running 45 minutes ahead of schedule. Do you want us to have the driver wait until the original delivery window? Or can you receive it early? So the customer doesn't have to chase you for information. You're providing it proactively. That's a completely different service level, and it requires zero human labor. The problem conversation is a conversation that happens when something goes wrong. And in logistics, something's always going wrong. Driver calls at 9 p.m. and says, hey, I've been at this receiver for 4 hours and they still haven't unloaded me. I'm going to hit my hours. Your on-call coordinator, who's trying to have dinner, says, okay, let me call the receiver and see what's going on. So they call the receiver, but they're closed. So they try the emergency contact. It's voicemail. They then try to figure out if they need to send another truck for the next pickup this driver was supposed to make. By the time they sort it out, it's 11 p.m., they made 15 calls, and they're paying detention fees because nobody documented the arrival time properly. Voice AI handles this completely differently. The driver reports the delay, and the AI immediately documents the arrival time and delay reason with timestamp, calculates projected detention charges, and determines whether the driver can legally complete the next scheduled pickup. And if not, it starts automatically sourcing a replacement truck. It updates all affected customers with revised ETAs and creates the detention claim documentation. All of this happens in 4 minutes while the human coordinator finishes their dinner. These 3 conversations, the capacity, status, and problems, represent roughly 85% of all logistics coordination work, and AI handles every single one of them faster, cheaper, and more consistently than humans can. Here's what's really happening in logistics right now and why voice AI isn't optional but it's survival. Freight brokers operate on razor-thin margins. The industry average is 14 to 16% gross margin. After you pay for coordinators, technology, office space, and overhead, you're looking at 3 to 5% net margin if you're doing well. That 3 to 5 net margin is what stands between profitability and bankruptcy, and it's getting compressed from both sides. On one side, the shippers are demanding better pricing because they can instantly compare rates across multiple brokers using digital platforms. The transparency is killing your pricing power. On the other side, carriers have more power than ever because capacity is tight and they know it. They're not accepting lowball offers anymore. So your margin is getting squeezed from both directions, and your only variable cost that you can actually control is coordination labor. Now let me show you the math on a typical mid-sized brokerage. Revenue of $30 million annually with a gross margin of 15% gives you $4.5 million. Coordination labor costs $900,000, and that's 10 coordinators fully loaded. Other overhead is $1.8 million, so net profit is $1.8 million, which is a 6% margin. Now let's run the exact same numbers with voice AI. Revenue is still $30 million, gross margin improves to 16% because of better rate optimization, so that's $4.8 million. Coordination labor drops to $200,000, that's the AI platform plus 2 human supervisors. Other overhead stays at $1.8 million, so now your net profit is now $2.8 million, which is a 9.3% margin. You just increased net profit by 55% while simultaneously improving service quality. But here's the real killer. Your competitor who makes this transition can now afford to operate at a 4% net margin, undercut your pricing significantly, steal your customers, and still make more absolute profit than you're making at 6% margins because they're going to grow faster. The companies that don't make this transition aren't going to slowly decline. They're going to hit a point where they literally cannot compete on price and service simultaneously, and they'll collapse quickly. Now, I hear this objection constantly. Our business is built on relationships with carriers, and AI can't replace that. This is complete nonsense, and I'm going to prove it to you. First, let's be honest about what carrier relationships actually means in most logistics operations. It means your coordinator has the carrier dispatcher's cell phone number and they text each other occasionally. That's it. That's the relationship. When you have a load and you call that carrier, they're not giving you preferential treatment because of your amazing relationship. They're giving you a rate based on current market conditions and their available capacity. Now, if someone else offers them $100 more for a different load going in the same direction, they're taking that load. It's not personal, it's just business. Second, voice AI actually builds better carrier relationships than human coordinators do, and here's why. Human coordinators are inconsistent. They forget to call carriers back, they promise to send rate confirmations and don't. They lose track of which carriers they already contacted for a load, and then negotiate differently based on their mood or how their day is going. Voice AI is perfectly consistent. Every carrier interaction follows the same professional process. Confirmations are sent instantly, follow-ups happen exactly when promised, payment terms are clearly communicated every time, and so carriers actually prefer this. I've talked to dozens of carrier dispatchers who love working with AI-powered brokers because the communication is clear, consistent, and reliable. They're not wondering if they're getting ghosted or if their confirmation got lost. Third, the relationship advantage you think of is mostly in your head. I've seen logistics companies lose supposedly ironclad carrier relationships the moment a competitor offers better rates or better payment terms. Test this out yourself. Track which carriers you have these relationships with, and then track how often they actually accept your loads versus going with competitors. I'll bet your acceptance rate is below 40%. That's some relationship, right? But here's the part that really matters. Voice AI enables you to maintain relationships with 10x more carriers than human coordinators ever could. Your coordinator can realistically maintain working relationships with 50 to 80 carriers that they contact regularly. Voice AI can maintain active relationships with 500 to 800 carriers by ensuring consistent communication, fair rate negotiations, and reliable follow-through with all of them. You're not losing relationship advantages with voice AI, you're multiplying them by 10x, while simultaneously eliminating the inconsistency that damages relationships in the first place. Here's something that most logistics executives don't want to face. Even if voice AI didn't exist, you'd still have a massive problem because you can't find and keep good coordinators anymore. The logistics coordinator role has become nearly impossible to fill with quality talent. You're asking people to sit in a cubicle, making phone calls for 8 hours straight, dealing with constant stress and interruptions, manage impossible amounts of complexity across dozens of active loads, take on-call shifts where they get woken up at 2 a.m. for problems, and do all of this for just $40,000 to $50,000 per year. And you're competing for this talent with Amazon warehouses paying $20 per hour with better benefits, and tech companies hiring remote customer service reps, and basically every other industry that's figured out how to make operation jobs less miserable. The result is turnover rates in logistics coordination are 35 to 45% annually. So that means you're replacing nearly half of your team every single year. Think about what that does for your operation. Constant hiring costs, constant training time, and it takes 4 to 6 months before a coordinator is fully productive. That means constant knowledge gaps as experienced people leave, constant quality inconsistencies as new people ramp up, and a constant worry about whether you'll have enough staff for peak season. And it's getting worse, not better. The generation entering the workforce right now, which is my generation, doesn't want to spend their day making phone calls and dealing with angry customers. They want remote work, flexible schedules, and tech-enabled roles. So you cannot build a sustainable logistics operation on the foundations of a job that nobody wants to do and that has a 40% annual turnover. Voice AI doesn't just solve your cost problem, it solves your talent problem. You're not trying to hire and retain 15 coordinators anymore. You're hiring 2 to 3 ops managers who oversee AI systems and handle exceptions. That's a completely different talent profile, higher paid, more stable, and actually attracts good candidates. So if you're running a logistics operation and you're not actively deploying voice AI right now, you're already behind. So here's exactly what you need to do. In month 1, audit and baseline everything. Stop everything and track metrics for 30 days. How many phone calls does each coordinator make? What percentage of those calls are capacity searches, status updates, or problem resolution? What's your actual cost per load when you include all the coordination labor? And what percentage of the loads take more than 4 hours from quote to booked carrier? How many loads per month have margin erosion between quote and actual? You need these numbers. Most logistics executives are operating purely on gut feel and they drastically underestimate how much efficiency is costing them. Now, in month 2, pick one specific workflow to automate first. Don't try to boil the ocean. My recommendation is to start with after-hours capacity searches. Between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m., you're either paying overtime for coordinators or accepting that you can't respond to load opportunities during those 14 hours. Between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m., you're either paying overtime for coordinators or accepting that you can't respond to load opportunities during those 14 hours. Deploying voice AI to handle capacity searches. So deploy voice AI to handle capacity searches during off hours only. So your coordinators still handle everything during business hours, and so this minimizes disruption while proving the concept. Run this pilot for 60 days and measure how many loads get quoted and booked during off hours, a percentage of those loads have better margins than daytime loads, customer satisfaction with after hours response times, and how much revenue you're capturing that you would have missed entirely. You'll have a concrete proof of ROI in 60 days with minimal risk. Now in month 3, based on your pilot results, develop a 12-month roadmap for expanded AI deployment. Start with after-hours capacity, which you just did, then move into routine status calls and tracking updates, which is the highest volume and lowest value work, then tackle carrier follow-ups and confirmations, which is a massive time sink, then handle initial problem triage and simple exception management. Finally, implement rate negotiations and margin optimization. Notice, I'm not saying replace all your coordinators immediately. You're systematically automating workflows in priority order while keeping humans focused on the high-value work. But here's what you need to understand. Your timeline for full deployment needs to be 12 to 18 months, not 3 to 5 years. The competitive dynamics are moving way too fast. If you take 3 years to fully deploy voice AI, your competitors will already have 2 years of cost advantages and operational learning. You'll be playing catch up from a position of weakness. You also need to have an honest conversation with your coordination team, and here's what you're going to tell them. Voice AI is going to automate 70 to 80% of the repetitive coordination work over the next 18 months. Now that's not optional, it's necessary for us to remain competitive. They have option 1, which is to evolve into ops management roles, where they're overseeing AI systems, handling complex exceptions, and managing strategic care relationships. These roles actually pay 30 to 40% more than the coordination pays now, and option 2 is to transition into different roles in the company, whether that's account management, carrier network development, pricing strategy, or implementation support. Option 3 is that you'll provide transition support if they choose to pursue opportunities elsewhere. But what's not an option is maintaining the status quo where humans do repetitive, low-value coordination work that AI can do better and cheaper. Now let me be crystal clear about where we are. Voice AI isn't going to run logistics ops by 2028, it's running them right now in forward-thinking companies. The question is whether you're going to be one of the companies leading this transition or one of the companies that gets crushed by competitors who moved faster. As I showed you, the economics are not debatable. 60 to 70% reduction in coordination labor costs, 24/7 operational capacity with zero overtime, better margins through optimized rate negotiations, and a dramatically better customer experience through instant responses. So this is a complete elimination of the talent acquisition and retention problem. Your competitors are implementing these systems right now, and I'm helping them. They're building cost structures you cannot compete with using traditional coordination, and the gap is widening every single day. Every week you delay, they're getting more data, more operational efficiency, and more cost advantage. So here's your choice. You can spend the next 12 months deploying voice AI and positioning your company for competitive dominance in 2026 to 2028, or you can spend the next 12 months telling yourself that your business is different, that your carrier relationships matter more, and that your customers prefer human touch. And in 18 months, you'll be trying to figure out why your margins have collapsed, why your customers are leaving for competitors who respond faster and cost less, and why you can't hire enough coordinators to handle the volume because the good ones are leaving for the companies with better technology. So this isn't a gentle transition that happens over a decade, it's a rapid displacement that's already underway. Don't be the executive who realizes too late that their entire business model became obsolete while they were waiting for the perfect moment to make change. The perfect moment was 6 months ago, and the second best moment is today. If you're serious about implementing voice AI in your business and you want expert help, that's exactly what I do. I work with companies across logistics, healthcare, financial services, and other industries to deploy production-ready voice AI systems that actually work. And if you want to talk about your specific situation and how voice AI could transform your operations, feel free to reach out to me directly. My contact information is in the description below. And if you want to learn how to build voice AI agents yourself, I run a school community where I share everything you need to get started. The templates in the school community are ready to deploy, so you can literally take them and start building today. The link to join the community is in the description below, so join now, grab the templates, and start building while your competitors are still trying to figure out what voice AI even is. And drop a comment and let me know your situation. Are you ready to implement voice AI in your business? Are you trying to build it yourself? What industry are you in? I read every comment and genuinely want to hear where you're coming from. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.